Basically just chatting today. So if you're tuning into this, we're not doing anything crazy. We're just trying to work on some Obsidian workflows and trying to explore what we might be able to do inside of Obsidian. So I know something that I'm looking at doing is I've been using Notion for a while for my task management in combination with a bullet journal. I have a podcast episode going out on Monday, and in that one, I'm talking about how I've been doing some refactoring and thinking through my task management workflow just because certain things haven't been working so well for me. Notion has worked really well as a planner for more bigger picture things, but hasn't worked very well overall for managing little tasks. And so I've been finding that I've desired to have some kind of a master task list somewhere. And because I've been diving into Obsidian quite a lot, and because it's text based, I figured, well, why not try to explore a little bit if there are some solutions out there that maybe you could add a master task list inside of Obsidian somehow, because I like the ability to dive into like one piece of software and just basically dig into, and just have that one workspace to work in essentially. And so I'm going to just kind of sift through a couple of solutions that I've found and just some research. And so if you have any tips or questions while we're diving into this today, I'm just going to be looking through some documentation, maybe trying to implement some of this stuff as well. I'll just kind of talk through it a little bit while I'm looking at it too. So if you're just joining, thanks for hanging out with me today. We're just chatting here, just hanging out, doing some work on Obsidian and some task management workflows. So if you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat box. We'll kind of talk about them as we're going here. But this first one that I have up here is a project called MarkDo that I found over on GitHub. It hasn't been updated in 4 years, but it's Ruby. And since I'm very familiar with Ruby, I would actually feel kind of comfortable digging into this if I needed to make some changes to it. But this is kind of cool because you can point it to different files or kind of have an inbox of sorts and use headings and then GitHub flavored markdown tasks in here. So that might be kind of a neat idea to implement some kind of task management inside of Obsidian. If I do something like this, I would probably keep the number of files lower, but just kind of have an inbox and then maybe some big bucket, like major areas of life task lists. Because again, my goal here isn't necessarily to have like this super structured task management system inside of Obsidian, but really just a place where I can track the outstanding to-dos that I have, because I've not really had a good place to do that where I can see it all in one spot. The bullet journal is awesome for being able to track and capture stuff and kind of get some fluid workflows going that you don't have to think about too much. But when it comes down to it, it's kind of silly, kind of goofy to try to manage projects or these really granular tasks in there, because it can be a lot for me anyway. So I like having kind of this combination, like hybrid system. That's kind of the idea that I'm trying to shoot for here. So this is a command line tool that I've got up. It's not graphical user interface, which would be okay because that means it's cross-compatible with both the Mac that I run on and on the Linux machine that I'm running behind me over here. Well, let's see. We're just going to do some exploration. Hey, Kevin. Thanks for the chat message there. Thoughts on OmniFocus? Have been a big fan of OmniFocus for task management. I've used it for a number of years. The only reason I have moved on from using it is because I've introduced different operating systems in my life. I used to primarily only be on Mac OS, but now I am using Linux for a lot of my work, and I think in the long term, I'm looking to be a little bit more operating system agnostic, so that I can jump through. If I decide to jump over to Windows or Linux or Mac, then I have that flexibility to do so. I found that kind of being stuck on one platform for me is not the best, especially as I've been getting more comfortable with other platforms again. But OmniFocus is a great tool. It'll be interesting to see where they take it. I know they've hit a little bit of financial difficulty over the last year or so and let a bunch of people go. I'm sure they're going to still make fantastic software because they've been around for ages. They've been around since Next was a company, and before they got acquired by Apple back in the 90s. So they've been around for a long time. I'm not too concerned about that bit, but yeah, fantastic piece of software. Can be a little complex. I will take this second to plug, though. My friend Tim Stringer has a course named Learn OmniFocus over at learnomnifocus.com. If you want to dig in really deep on how to get going in OmniFocus and building workflows, that's an excellent resource. All right, apparently my mouse decided to drop Bluetooth there for a second. Okay. So if we look here, okay, we can set a couple variables, it looks like, for your mark do root forecast, and then the inbox file. What's kind of cool about this tool is that it was inspired by OmniFocus and Task Paper. So there's some similar syntax in here too, like this do, defer, being able to star tasks. Migrating to Linux, yeah, it's a thing. If you're looking at it seriously, though, I would definitely recommend checking out Pop! OS. I have an Intel Hades Canyon NUC on the desk behind me over there that I've been running Pop! OS on for the last few months, and it's smooth. I mean, I was running the two 4K displays that I have off of my Mac Mini. That's over on the shelf, that I'm actually looking at getting rid of now because I have that NUC, and it was chugging with those. And for similar specifications on that machine, it's about a third of the price, which is like an i7 processor, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gig, M2 drive, and it screams. Like it's really fast, really snappy, and Pop! OS makes it really easy with a lot of same defaults and cool features right out of the box, so you don't have to worry about it. The one trick with it, though, is if you have big displays like I do, the display scaling is a little goofy over on Pop! OS. They've got some bugs that they're working out with that, but that's kind of the trick with Linux, is that you got to be okay kind of digging in and rooting around and trying to fix some stuff yourself. But with Pop! OS, which is based on Ubuntu, by the way, it's been pretty easy to do that. I really haven't had to do too much mucking around in the command line to fix stuff, unlike a distribution like Arch Linux, where you're basically doing everything by yourself. But if you want to really learn Linux, that's a good way to do it too. So let's see. Okay. Looking back at this here, it looks kind of cool. You can search for that. Okay, we use @ symbols for tags. This might be a really neat feature to implement. Using this would just be a really nice, quick command line tool for it. The other one I was looking at here too that I saw recommended on the Obsidian forums is I'm Done. And apparently this works with markdown files. I haven't dug too deep into how this actually works, if it actually imports stuff into the app or if it's based in the files itself. But it seems kind of interesting. It's a Kanban sort of setup here. And let's see. Yeah. Hi, I'm the guy who asked you to make a video about the notes for Obsidian books. Well, I haven't made it yet, but it is on my list to make in the next couple of weeks. So I tend to try to prioritize content that I'm creating for this channel for people who are asking for it. And so if there's specific things you're looking for and you want to see here and relating to productivity or note taking, things like that, Obsidian in particular, definitely leave them in the comments. I'd love to get those suggestions from you. So yeah, do know that that's coming in the next couple of weeks. I'm also planning on adding some specific videos to the Obsidian Made Simple course that Francesco D'Alessio and I launched last week, kind of digging in a little deeper into Zettelkasten and trying to explain a lot of that. So do be aware that's coming, but I will put a book notes video over on this YouTube channel right here. So if you haven't subscribed, be sure to do that and catch that. That'll be coming in the next couple weeks. So this is kind of neat because I think it's an open source application. Oh, maybe not. It's pricing here. Let's take a look at this. So you get a single user license for $25 or what is it? Yeah, 25. So it's a paid solution, but I guess we'll take a look at that. Again, if you're just joining, I'm taking a look at some task management solutions that I can integrate inside of my Obsidian Vault. Basically looking at building some kind of a plain text task management system that comes with that vault. So it'd be kind of nice to have it all in one place. And then, yeah, we'll take a look at that in just a second about how I've structured the notes relating to books. I've got a couple, but it's pretty simple actually. So I don't do anything too crazy with that, but I can show you an example in just a little bit. The last one here I'm looking at is Tascal. And this is a command line Kanban board that's based in Markdown text files. And it looks kind of cool. Uses Vim style key bindings, which is nice because I'm very familiar with Vim. And yeah, I might take a look at this one, but the interesting thing about this is it uses a completely different format from MarkDo. But I think there is some configuration that you can make here. Let's take a look down a little further. Yeah, so there's a config file that you can set for Tascal where you can set the description indicator, titles, tasks, subtasks. So that might be something that I can look at modifying too. If I wanted a Kanban view of tasks here from MarkDo gem, Ruby gem, I can at least take a look and see if that works. It's kind of interesting. Hey, Jeff. First and foremost, thanks for buying the course on Keep Productive. I hope you find it really helpful. But yes, I work for a company that's full of, that's pretty fast-paced. Discourse, we make forum communication software, and we're making changes to that thing every day. And so it's difficult for us to keep track on what's changed in the software from day to day. And I mean, Obsidian's moving pretty quickly too. So yeah, they're releasing features at a breakneck pace right now. So I know, but the cool thing about that is we're going to be updating on major features that are coming out. We're not necessarily going to update on every little tweak in the course, but major features such as Obsidian Publish, the Workspaces feature that just got launched, and other features like that. When they get the sync feature rolled out too, we'll be doing some of that as well. So there's a lot of cool stuff I know they have in the pipeline, and even stuff that they don't have in the pipeline that they're just implementing, which is really fun. But thanks for taking the course. If you find it helpful, definitely appreciate that. I'm glad for that. But if you don't, if there's anything that you're wanting to see in there, just send an email to Francesco. I think he's the one who's been kind of triaging those, and then we'll make sure to get some tweaks done or additional modules added too. The other thing that I was considering doing is we've got the Todoist Sync plugin inside of Obsidian. It uses the Volcano plugin, which is not official by any means. And so I haven't really dug into implementing that too much, but this is kind of cool where you can basically embed a Todoist list right inside of your Vault. So this wouldn't necessarily be plain text tasks inside of Obsidian, but it would be you would add tasks inside of Todoist, and then you would be able to modify those tasks right inside of your vault. So that's kind of cool. The downside with this is you can't input tasks from Obsidian. So I guess we'll take a look there. Hey Brian, thanks for joining the stream here. Taskell is nice. Yeah, I think I'm gonna check it out. And then I also found this. If you didn't catch it earlier, this MarkDo Ruby gem that allows for keeping track of tasks using GitHub flavored Markdown syntax. So you might be able to get both of these combined together in a fancy way to get a task list working. So, and again, I am just kind of working through how to maybe incorporate a general like master task database inside of Obsidian. So that's kind of the driver behind making these decisions. Cool. Well, I think the first thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to install this just for fun. So let's see. Oh, of course. Okay, I've got the documentation up here too. All right, so we're looking at, we want to figure out how to set MarkDo root. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. Looks like we got to figure out what we're doing with that. Some on-air troubleshooting here. It's always fun when you have to do this. Okay. Actually, just going to look in the code, see where that is. By default. Okay, so it's an environment variable. All right, that's easy enough. Yeah, Jeff's talking about Brian Jenks's workflow video for Obsidian. If you haven't checked that out, definitely go over to Brian's channel. It's very in-depth. He's got a lot of cool stuff that he's doing in his Obsidian vault. I actually was learning quite a bit about workflow type deals and inspired me to do some different stuff with Obsidian. So good work on that, Brian. I definitely appreciate the content you're putting out. Let's see here. I'm gonna do home. Okay. What are we doing here? trying to use all my key bindings that I use over on Linux here on Mac, so that's really helpful. Yes, you should, Brian. You should do another Obsidian live stream. I watched one of them that you posted, and that was really interesting as well. Okay, so we'll do this. Then 999 tasks. Okay, then we're gonna change into that directory. And then I'm just gonna touch inbox.md. We'll just create an inbox file there. But doing that, okay, so mark to edit. Okay, that's not what I wanted. I'll try that. Okay, it might be wanting to do this as a entire file. Interesting. I'll go over to Obsidian. Just okay, got inbox here. So if you're just watching, what I'm doing here is I'm working on trying to get MarkDo, which is a Ruby gem script command line utility, to work with Obsidian to kind of create a master task list inside of my Obsidian vault, plus having some tools that I can use with that. We'll see if this works, because it's being a little tricky, and it was last updated, well, it looks like 3 years ago, so we'll see if we can get it working. The documentation's not the best, unfortunately. But let's see. Does he have a wiki here for this? No, he does not. Okay. So we'll do this again. Just trying to sort out what the deal is here. Okay, looks like there's some defaults here that's defaulting to. MarkDo root is the current directory, and then the inbox is inbox.md. Okay. Let's get back to the commands here so I can learn what I'm doing in the first place. Okay, add test task. Okay, not a directory. Sure, okay. Probably what it's trying to do is it's not escaping the path properly. So maybe what I'll do is we'll move 999 tasks to just, for now anyway. And then MarkDo. Okay, oh, of course, I didn't actually change the environment variable for the inbox. Inbox equals okay, that's something. And then I suppose I need to redo this one here too. Okay, MarkDo add No such file or directory. Yeah, I'm almost betting that there's something goofy going on in this code where it's not properly escaping the spaces in there, and therefore it's breaking, which is a bummer because it means it's going to need some work. Oh, actually, no, we got a double path in there. Never mind. So I'm just going to export. I'm actually just going to create a new session because I shouldn't have to do that. Cancel out of that. Okay. Now we'll try again. Yeah. Okay. Well, bummer. That one's not working so hot here. I would have to do probably a little bit more digging into what the heck is going on with it. More than likely, there's something weird because it's doing this double path thing here where it's doing, yeah, more than likely it might be do that environment variable. Let's just see if that does anything different. Okay, that's it. Okay, so now if we open up tasks, inbox, hey, all right, there we go. That's kind of cool. So now if I just do a test, mark do add test do date. Of course, I got the dots in there. That doesn't help me any at all, but this is kind of buggy. Kind of buggy. Okay. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, I know, but it's at least, it's an option that's out there. I might have to do some more digging into the technicals of this one to get it to kind of work. Tascal could be kind of cool, though, so I think I'm going to try this one next. At least get it set up. So since I'm on Mac, brew install Tascal. And this will run for a little bit here, probably. Again, if you are just tuning in, what we're doing today is I'm working through just trying to figure out a plain text task management system of sorts. It's not going to be too complex anyway inside of Obsidian. I'm trying to move out of using Notion just because I was finding the database that I was using pretty clunky in some regards, and in others it was working just fine, but there was a couple pieces of friction where I realized that having an all-in-one tool, both my note-taking and task management, would actually be kind of cool. Okay, so that's all taken care of. Okay, if I do Tascal. Yes, I do want to create that. Okay. That was kind of easy, but that's also really hard to see. This is kind of cool that you can fetch a Trello board using this. So if you wanted to probably sync up with Trello, you could do that. That could be kind of interesting to do. Things never really jived with me and Trello in the past, but maybe if I could figure something out with that, that might be kind of cool to work. Okay, I'm just gonna take a look at this here. Okay, looks like you can adjust the theme, which is nice. I'll even handle that in a little bit. So, all right, using this thing. Okay, I can use different files if I want, or I can use just tascal.md. That's nice. Okay, so Tascal help. Okay, I can I'll just see about this. Okay, if I do insert. All right, I'm totally lost. But I'm working on it. So if I'm using more complicated column, use HL to move tasks between columns. Okay. Let's take a look more toward the bottom here. Go over to GitHub. Okay, this is the same idea here, same information. Trick is figuring out how to insert a task. That's the deal. You can use a space bar to mark when it's done. Okay. Config. Maybe I should read the config. That's probably a good idea. Okay. Bindings. Okay, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. New task. A. Test task. Okay, we'll head over to the vault. Pascal. Okay, that's actually really, really simple. Just got to figure out the bindings for it is all. But there are 3 columns here to do, doing, done. Very typical Kanban view. And then it's just Markdown, which is fantastic. If I did want to integrate it with that other tool, I would just have to do some editing to make this show up as a GitHub flavored Markdown, which I probably will do anyway, just because it'll show up as a task then in Obsidian if I go into preview mode and I can check it off. Yeah, Brian, Vim keys in Pascal. That's I love Vim first and foremost. Vim is pretty cool. I use it all the time for all of my development type work. But fuzzy find, that would be interesting for a menu there. We're getting really into the nerdy weeds today, but that's totally okay. So if I mark that off, and then I go back in here, just try to figure out how things are working under done. Okay, cool. All right. So then I want to quit, just Q, undo, redo, search, very helpful. Do, no do tasks. That's handy to have that. What's really interesting, though, is that people are in love with due dates, but I tend to like to schedule things a little bit more. I tend to use due dates very sparingly, if even at all, no matter what task manager or tool that I'm using, unless there's something that's super hardline due, and then I'll just tell Siri to add it to reminders on my phone. From there, though, I don't know. I tend to use due dates more for scheduling, if I do that at all. If there's, say, hey, I want to do this on this one date, if there's not like a schedule feature or a defer date type of a thing in an app, what I'll do is I'll just probably use the due date. Except that doesn't really work well in tools like OmniFocus because you tend to get notifications and such. But in a tool like Pascal here, which I admit is a little bit hard to see on the screen with the color scheme right now, having a due date and just kind of saying, hey, this is where I'm going to work on things today, that could be a cool way to handle it. So let's see, we can edit using these, clear, delete, due date. If I hit, okay, let's do this. Test do. Okay, that adds a new task. That's kind of cool. Let's do today. Let's just see how that works. Oh, you can add descriptions and subtasks. Okay, it brings up a little card. That's kind of cool. figure out the formatting here for that. There you go. Okay, it's got to be an ISO date. Makes sense. It's pretty easy to parse too, and fairly common in the computer world to use an ISO date like that. Then let's see here. Moving tasks is capitals. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty much like a straight up Vim key bindings in here. This could be an option. What I'm gonna do though. Yeah, thanks for that, Brian. Let's see. It'd be great if everything just used, you know, relative dates and such, but, you know, it's kind of hard to figure that one out. So ISO dates are ultimately better. I love how ISO dates sort. That's the only reason that I use them. Okay, so what am I doing next here? I'm looking at config. Okay, I'm just going to quit out of that. Vim config. Pascal, and I'll do config. Yeah, the stream delay is pretty funny, isn't it, when it comes to trying to troubleshoot, huh? Okay, board title, that should be okay. Then I'm going to do GitHub flavored markdown task here. And let me see if I can do the same here. Summary is just a quote. Okay. Yeah, that's broken now, which is fine. I'll just delete it. Yes, we'll create again. Okay, so add a task. And then we'll go over to Obsidian, into the task.l file. Yeah, that's pretty slick. Now if I go over to back to iTerm here, just escape out of that. And if I go down to, okay, how do I add the description? Figure that out next. Good question. My system is going to be more efficient than what I can construct in Notion. Okay. Well, let me talk a little bit about the overall picture of what I'm trying to achieve here. In Notion, you can do a lot that's really powerful with connecting databases and different pages. One thing I haven't done yet is trying to explore how backlinks and the new linking system inside of Notion might afford what I'm trying to do more than just a straight up database system. But the trick for me with Notion is that I have found it work really well for a like higher level planning tool. I use it to kind of frame my year and the like quarter that I'm currently in and some bigger picture goals or aims that I have for that time frame. And I've tried using it now for tasks and stuff, and it's worked just fine. But the kicker is getting it all synced up and in the right place. And then also using it on mobile too has been a little bit of a challenge. So my idea here is to just explore what it might be looking like to build something like this in Obsidian. I might not even go about doing this whatsoever. But building it in Obsidian at least keeps like my primary workspace in one place, whether it's the note taking or writing, the capturing of ideas and thoughts, and then also the tasks that I'm working on too. My goal with this though is to create more of just like a master task list or task database that I'm using and planning my day off of in a notebook, more of a bullet journal style format, versus trying to actually manage a massive task list with lots of metadata and such. I'm more just looking for a singular place where I can put all those things to do that I have, instead of having them spread out between different pages of my notebook or in different places. So that's kind of the idea. May it be more efficient than what I have in Notion? Maybe, maybe not. But the kind of the hole that I've been feeling here has largely been not really having just a list that I have. Bob, will this be your eyes only? Not exactly sure what you mean by that. As far as my task list, yes. I have tasks that tend to be sensitive or maybe under NDA through the work that I do. And so it won't be published publicly. But as of right now, what we're talking about on this stream, I may keep that up later, but that's kind of the general gist of it. So yeah, I am trying to figure out how to get this description here, and I just haven't quite figured that out quite yet. So working on that. Well, there that is. Okay. I guess I just need to use the key bindings as appropriate. Okay, that's kind of goofy how that's set up, probably because of how I did something. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, that's kind of odd. Oh, okay, I see how it's doing here. It's just doing something a little weird. It has to do with the config that I have. If I go back into iTerm, exit out of that, and then I look into here. If I try to do that instead, judging by the current format in there, if I remove that, it will create a subtask. So I'm going to remove task scale again. We'll regenerate it. Okay, so we'll add test parent, and then we'll edit it. Actually, and then back into Obsidian. Nice. Okay, that's exactly what I'm looking for, something like that. Haven't quite figured out the description yet here, but that's okay. No big deal. So this could very well be something that I would use for creating some kind of a master task list if I decide to go the plain text route. The thing that's nice about plain text is that it's future-proof. I also don't have this synced up through any outside cloud services. I mean, I do through Dropbox at this point in time, but my plan is to completely encrypt it so that outside eyes aren't prying into it. But other than that, that's kind of looks like a promising potential solution anyway for this. If I try to open up this one, okay, then I can create a board for a specific project, in this case, effective remote work, and then add tasks in there. Okay, go back into Obsidian. That's cool. If I could just get this MarkDo gem working appropriately, this could be a really neat way to aggregate them together, because again, this one's just reading for tasks in the GitHub flavored markdown syntax. And so if I could use the combination of the two of them together, it might work quite nicely. But again, we were just running into some bugs with this earlier as we were trying to build it and mess with it. The other option is just doing straight up just plain text lists in here using the GitHub Markdown syntax and then not doing anything on a CLI at all. Having a setup like this where I can just write it in Markdown and then use the Kanban board more so through a CLI app could be kind of interesting. But again, it's just going to ultimately come down to ergonomics for me. I know is kind of the deal on this one. So that's largely what I've been looking at here. Now, we'll just do a quick search in the Obsidian forum here too, see if there's anything else that comes up. Okay, here's an interesting thread, or rather topic, because it's discourse. We call them topics. I do like a lot of the sentiments that are in this topic about how it's good to have hard edges on applications and use a task manager for a task management application. That does make a lot of sense. I'm kind of burned out a little bit on a lot of the task managers though, because it's a lot of the same right now. I would love to see some kind of an innovation in the task management space over the next few years that's happening right now in the note-taking application space. I have no idea what that would look like. Okay. So Bob, does your task management workspace or solution need to be compatible with whatever methodology or framework you're working in at any stage? That's a really good question. And forgive me if I'm still not 100% understanding what you're getting at here. I'll do my best. And if you jump in to clarify, feel free to do so. I am not a huge believer in thinking that I need to have it all working in every context that I have. I do like flexibility. I used to be super heavy into getting things done. I've tried a million different task management systems. And what I've learned over the years is just that I need to do what works for me. And I'm finding ultimately that I just listing tasks and having a light level of organization is the best way for me. And then where the magic happens more so is in the planning, my planning of my day, the planning of my week, the planning of my month, so on and so forth. Another message from Bob. If that's the case, we'd be able to simply export and make available your plain text schedules to your team or your project manager. Okay, that's interesting. In that context, no, like I don't have to keep my task list updated in front of anybody or anything like that. If I did, I would definitely be pushing to use a tool like Asana or one of these team task management tools. What we do at Discourse is we actually use Discourse, which you see on the screen here. This is the Obsidian Discourse forum to manage projects and big tasks. And so people get assigned to a task, which is generally more of a smaller project about making modifications or something that we're working on. And then they're kind of in charge of managing the little details of that. And I've actually found that delegating tasks in an environment and that kind of approach where you're more managing bigger projects, if you're from a manager type perspective, instead of kind of having to manage all the little niggly details of what everybody's doing on every single second, I think that's a little bit more helpful. It's a little bit more effective, especially when you're working remotely or in an asynchronous communication style environment like I am. So yeah, this is going to be technically for my eyes only. I'm not going to be sharing it with anybody else. And if there's any status updates that I need to give people, I have other channels that I will do that through. Have I seen Athens Research, an open source Rome research analog? I heard about it a few months back when I was doing some research for the video on the channel here about the non-nerdy alternatives to Rome. And I haven't looked at it since, because at that point in time, it was very rudimentary. It wasn't even ready for looking at or really running. It was just kind of a proposed project. Yeah, so Athens does not yet persist data. Do you want to try it? Go here. Okay. So they've got a proof of concept up and running, but it doesn't actually do much yet. I do like the fact that it's open source. That's a big win for me. Obsidian is not open source, but the way that they're structuring the application isn't as big of a deal to me because you have access to all of your data. It's not held hostage in some database somewhere and you have to export it out. It's just plain text files. Plus, they're a small team of people, a small thing. They're not trying to build a SaaS app, let's put it that way. So yeah, I mean, this might be okay. It might be kind of cool, but I'm not really sure on that. Let's see here. Well, I did have a question I want to get back to about book notes. Let me see if I've got what I got here. Let's just take this off the screen for a second here and make sure I've got data scrubbed out of here. Sorry about that. Okay. So this is a slightly different approach than I'm going to show on the screen here to book notes. But it's kind of a way you can do it. So this are my book notes from the book Hyperfocus by Chris Bailey. And what I've done here is I've basically just taken a dump of highlights that I have from my Kindle, which is where I read this, and then I've put them in a note here. So I've tagged in the author, Chris Bailey, so that's there. It's a type book, so then I can sort by those over here in the tag pane, and then it's linked to different topics: productivity, deep work, focus, creativity, so on and so forth. What I've gone through and done here in the past, which is a little different than how I do things now, because I've got a bunch of books that I'm in the process of reading, and what I'm doing with those is I'm taking notes inside of drafts on my iPhone, because I usually either have a paper book or my Kindle, and then as I'm reading, and I apologize if you can hear kids in the background right now, but they're having a little bit of a tough time. And what I ended up doing is I'm just writing down my own thoughts. I'm not doing highlights really much anymore on books. I'm just writing my own thoughts as I'm reading. If something sparks a thought in me, I'll write that thought down. I'll try to get the general idea figured out, and then I'll just kind of note it there. Then when I'm done with that book, what I will do is I will bring it into Obsidian, and then I'll start processing it out. I'll work on getting more evergreen notes kind of crafted out of that, strong facts, strong opinions that I find are important to me. But here what I've done is I've just kind of linked concepts. So this was more about disconnecting, productivity, on focus, creativity, attention, planning. And then those are ultimately linked together to other places. Now, I haven't actually taken this one yet, and I'll be honest, I've been pretty bad the last few months at trying to process some things in my Obsidian vault into more evergreen notes, so to say. But it's just largely been because of life circumstances and things like that. Having the pandemic and the stressors of that definitely do impact your ability to think and process and all that. So, I've just been trying to be easy on myself to get all that stuff taken care of. Because ultimately, it's, this stuff here that I have on the screen is not the most important thing in my life. I got to take care of my family. I got to take care of myself. And, if this can contribute to that, that's awesome. But if not, then sometimes it needs to take a back seat. And if you're kind of in a spot like that too, don't feel pressure that you have to have this all sorted out. Take care of yourself, take care of your family too. But anyway, off of that side tangent, that's kind of the general gist of book notes for me. The way this would look now is that you would see my own thoughts here, and then more links to evergreen notes versus just quotes from a book. Hope that helped. I'll be doing a video on this too in the next couple of weeks so you can get a better idea of what this might look like for yourself. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up the live stream today. I really appreciate everybody who hopped on. Thanks for watching. If I'm planning on doing more of these in the future, so if you're interested in hanging out and figuring out Obsidian or other productivity topics, we'll be doing some more live streams as well. But I'm going to sign off.